Welcome back to the Bridge Podcast. Today we have Teresa Hughes with us. Teresa, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for asking me to join the podcast, Dan.
I'm so excited to have you here. I think it's an opportunity to talk to safety people and different leaders about communication, but really just about their experience. I think that there's a lot of intelligence and knowledge and wisdom that comes through years of service as a safety person, as a leader in industry, and you don't hear a lot of people's stories. So I'm really glad you're on today.
Well, thank you.
So tell me, you've been in safety for how long?
Longer than dirt. I would say over 30 years. I started out in safety quite young, kind of fell into it, as we all do, but it's been an experience and a ride, and I'm excited because I plan on continuing as long as my body and mind can continue.
Well, and from our first conversation, you're very passionate about safety and about people's safety from your early on days when you first started out, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, when I first started in safety, I was young and new, and I remember my first experience with a workplace incident and having to tell family members that they weren't coming home. Very devastating. And when I was trying to explain the benefits to the family, being a young mom myself, I went, they don't want to hear this. So I looked over at the mother and I said, you don't want to hear this. She reached over, touched my hand, and said, don't stop doing what you're doing. And then we took a break and we walked out, we reconvened, and I haven't stopped doing what I'm doing. It was a very hard decision to carry on because you think, do I want to do this? Do I want to have to tell somebody that their partner or child isn't coming home? And I vowed that under my watch, nobody is going to have to do that again. And I haven't had to. So
Amazing.
I'm very thankful.
I'm thankful too. I'm thankful that you haven't had to do it again. How old were you?
I would say I was 23, 24.
Oh, goodness, you didn't know
Right
anything
at the
about it.
start of my career, I was still in doing my career, but at the same time, taking my courses in occupational health and safety, young mom with a new baby and a 6-year-old. So I was like, I guess I was about 24, between 24 and 26. So I was a little bit devastated. Well, not a little, but a lot, and had to really consider, was this the career for me?
Well, certainly.
And
Now, it's interesting because I've spoken with a lot of safety folks who have dealt with this kind of stuff, and it happens more than we want to admit. It's like one a day we're losing in Canada, which is insane. So
there's no
was
reason
there?
for it.
Yeah. Well, there's always a root cause analysis, and there's always a reason that
Always,
comes up,
yes.
right? But the reality is, yeah, there's definitely these are all preventable. The old adage that these things just happen, mistakes happen, and bad days like it doesn't make anybody feel better when you're talking about their spouse or their father or their mother, dying in the field.
Exactly. And I think as safety professionals and leaders, because we deal with the soft skills, the hard skills, we have to deal with the people and getting to the reasons why they do. I mean, everybody goes to work to earn a living. Nobody goes to work to get hurt. Nobody goes to work to not come home at the end of the day. But you have to find their reason. And I think that's something I've been doing over the past 30 years is I find their reason. What is their reason to say stay safe in the workplace? And it depends. It could be they want to protect their family, they want to raise children, they want to be able to hold their grandchildren later on in life. And some go, what do you mean stay safe? And it's interesting because when I first started in safety, there was a lot of the older generation. And now we're dealing with the younger generation. So you're seeing complete changes in attitudes and beliefs, underlying attitudes and beliefs about being safe in the workplace. It's a clearly different dynamic. I think now the younger generation that are coming into the workforce, they're demanding the workplace be safe. They know more than the older generation. about workplace safety and health. It's been in their curriculum, it's been in their workplaces. There's still a lot of areas where we could focus and spend more time educating before they even get into the workplace. But I'm thinking the younger generation now, today, I would say where I currently work, I'm the oldest. I'm the second oldest for the first time in my life, in my career. It sounds weird, but they call me mom. So every single one of them is the same age as my children. I think there might be half a dozen that aren't, but literally my managers, my workers, my employees, they're all around the age of my children.
Teresa,
Uh,
I was at a family gathering over Thanksgiving weekend, just the past weekend here, and I looked around. It was my wife's side of the family, and I looked around and realized that I was the second oldest in the room, and that the young men were 35, and they're talking to you like you're supposed to know something, you know. And so hopefully, I've learned a few things to tell them, so, you know, to help them out if I can help them. But the reality is, you know, you look around and there's a responsibility that you have, you know, about leading properly, about taking care of people through your attitude, taking care of people through not only your knowledge but just how to go about business properly and safely, you know. So it's kudos to you. That's you've got a role of responsibility.
And typically, safety is the first people they encounter in a workplace.
Hmm.
My goal in life has always been to educate and motivate and inspire workers and young people, especially, to ask the hard questions. And I teach my managers it's okay to say, you don't know the answer. If we can't acknowledge our own flaws or biases within our own learning, then we're not of any help to anyone. And I'm
Absolutely.
not saying I'm the world's expert. Every day I learn something new. So I think that dynamic is changing because I remember when I first started out. I mean, I was young, younger than most of the guys I was overseeing, and I remember working with a 63-year-old scaffolder in the oil sands, and we called him Spidey. And he's, I was warned, like, he does not like following the rules. And I said, I don't care. I found you this job. I called your wife and told you about it. And this is my job site, and you will be safe. And within a couple weeks of working together and going on a turnaround, because I was up in camp at the time, he came back. When I came back, he said, somebody's got to do your job while you're on days off. I said, well, it's everyone's responsibility. So what part do you want it? He says, well, I think I could do really good at filling out all the confined space permits. I said, great. I'm sending you to school. Let's go do it. We'll do it together. I said, but when we're doing it together, when you're on turnaround, who's doing the scaffolding? Because they're the first in, and we can't do any permits until the scaffold's in.
Right.
And he goes, well, what about you? I said, well, what about me? He says, do you want to learn how to erect a scaffold? I said, yeah. So we signed up for confined space monitor training together. We signed up for, sat in with me for scaffolding, and he taught me how to erect scaffolding, and I taught him how to do permits. And this was a guy that did not like to fill out a field level risk assessment. He hated paperwork. I came back on my first turnaround and I looked at the stack of papers. Every I was dotted, every T was crossed. They were in numerical order, and he had the biggest smile on his face. He said, I did this. And I said, yeah, you did. And I'm very
Teresa,
proud of you.
let me ask a question. What was the change? I mean, obviously you being there and working with him, but what do you feel like the change was that happened there?
I allowed him to take ownership of a safety role that he wouldn't normally do. So by taking on a responsibility that I had to perform and being responsible for it, and knowing that not doing that task properly could result in somebody getting hurt, he looked at me and he said, I have more appreciation for what a safety person does. And I showed him his field level risk assessments from before he started helping me out with this to afterwards. And he said, well, it's my job to take care of people. And I went, it's everyone's job. And
Yeah.
so it was very inspiring because, it was a big thing around the group because we were like family for a year up in camp, and they were all like, he's tough, man. He's really tough with us when you're not around. And we kind of miss your softness. And I'm like, my softness is in how I approach you. My firmness is in how we apply the principles. Because if I'm not firm with you and I let one thing go, that could be the difference between you here today or gone tomorrow. So I think as leaders, we have to recognize our own weaknesses. Because I'm a very much a softie. I empathize with people. I'm part of equity diversity within our organization. I'm a mental health first aider. People talk to me all the time. No,
So,
it's
thinking
like,
about mental health, let me ask
yes.
you a question about your first experience when you had to deal with that fatality. So when you're going through this, let's say you've gotten through the majority of. I mean, people don't understand what happens after a fatality on site, and I would say, if we just went bare bones briefly, you're talking about piles of investigations, root cause analysis. Not even talking about when you're talking to the family. All of
Oh,
these things happen
before
over a
that
period of.
even, I had to go to the site. I watched them bag my coworkers up and
Yeah.
having my emergency response team, which I was part of, saying, no, you do traffic. They didn't even want me to see, but I knew. And then having to sit there and go through the investigation, and it was still going on, and still having to communicate what happened and not being able to give them answers. There was a lot of I was very proud of that time because, I mean, this was 20, 25 years ago when, people didn't really think of mental health and the impacts. I mean, we
Well, that's
had,
where I was going with this, is what did they have in place for you at that time? Because you had to have some PTSD from that situation. That's
um,
that's a
yeah,
horrible situation.
immediately, we called in a critical stress debrief team to meet with the individuals that went out to respond, and then to the key players within the organization that had to deal with the family. So that was there. And then because of the type of company it was, we deployed critical debrief teams across the network so that other coworkers could jump in and go talk to people. And I think that was very important because even now, like, I'm tearing up because even now I remember that day so clearly.
Yeah.
It PTSD can arise so fast in any job, whether you're a police officer, whether you're a firefighter, whether you're a paramedic, that's a part of your job. But when you're a safety professional, or whether you're a payroll professional, or whether you're dealing with benefits, you don't know what that impact of having to deal with that situation is going to be on you, on your family, on your coworker, or just any lingering effects. And so it's very important that workplaces have those systems in place.
You have training now for mental health first aid.
I'm a strong proponent that with the increase, especially since the pandemic, we've seen the increase in mental health, depression, domestic violence, alcohol and drug addiction increasing since the pandemic. Before, of working in the construction industry, men are typically at the higher risk of not identifying mental health or having enough mental health supports within their community. Women, we talk. Let's face it, we're talkers. I mean, I've been told to be quiet sometimes. But
No.
oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I've lived all my life. Every school report. Teresa talks a lot. This is why I'm in the career that I'm in. Women have those supports. We're willing to go out to our friends or family. We'll talk to people on the street. We have that capability. But young men growing up have been raised not to talk about their feelings, not to express what's going on in their life. And having a mental health first aider within your organization allows employees to know that there's someone they can go talk to. They don't have to talk to you about everything, but if they can have that first conversation and say, I need help, and have someone there to be able to give them the resources and say, hey, it's okay. A lot of times people are afraid to connect with their employee assistance programs or call, your provincial health directories like 211. I think 211 is now the national number. There is a national number out there for everybody, but I think people need to understand that it's okay to talk about what you're going through
So,
because
Teresa, can I ask you? I agree 100%, and thank you because that's huge. I'm getting this message over and over again that men are starting to learn that it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to talk about these things. And I mean,
absolutely.
we could have a whole conversation about why that is that the men are in this situation. That could take us 2 days to to even
It's a
scratch the
lifetime.
surface of, right? Yeah. But so if you're talking, if you wanted to send a message out to the crews that may be listening to this, to people in the audience about what they should be, if they're worried about somebody in their crew or somebody in their life who's going through some mental health issues, what should they be looking for in terms of symptoms and how should they approach them?
Well, typically, you look at a person's normal behavior. What is their normal behavior? I know myself, if I'm dealing with issues and I'm having things going on, I become very quiet and withdrawn. So, noticing changes in a person's behavior or demeanor, they're not participating in lunches. Maybe they used to sit around and be the laugh of the lunch hour, but now they're sitting in their office or going off by themselves, not joining in on after work activities that they normally do, not answering their phone regularly. Those are some signs and symptoms that somebody may be experiencing some difficulty, but they don't know how to approach. I get this question asked a lot is, well, how do you have that topic?
Yeah,
You ask the simple question, are you okay? I'm here for you. Are you okay? I'm here for you. Those two words can mean the world of difference between having someone to talk to or not having someone to talk to. And it's okay if you're the other person that needs to talk is go talk to someone you know who's caring and empathetic within your organization, within your social group and say, I need help. I'm not asking for anything more than your support.
amazing.
And
Thank you.
that's the first thing you need to say on
Thank
both
you.
sides of the coin. You're
That's
welcome.
fantastic information that I think people need to hear. Yeah, wonderful. What kinds of trends are you seeing nowadays in that are coming up that maybe you like? What are you seeing that's happening that's changing in your industry? You've been around for a while, so what's going on that's going well?
Well, I think what's going well is there's becoming a lot more of us. I'm
You're starting to
seeing,
outnumber people.
yeah, I used to be, one of a kind. Now I'm a dime a dozen. I get, we used to be unique. It was having a safety professional was a unique role. Now I'm seeing more and more, and I'm happy to say that because, one of my peak career opportunities I had was developing an occupational health and safety certificate program. It's now a diploma program, and when I see people graduating from it or I hear they went through it, it's like, yay, I helped develop that. So or getting people reaching out to me and saying, "Can you mentor me?" I've mentored so many young people that want to go into safety, and I'm watching and following their careers. And I think that that is the legacy we need to do is watch and make sure that we guide young people because there needs to be that position within every organization. And where it may go 20 years from now, I'll still be watching, I hope. In 20 years, I'll be able to, talk to those that I mentored and say, hey, what are the trends today? But what I am finding is that young workers are wanting more and more information. I'm finding that regulations are starting to move closer. They're still hard to follow in some areas, or you're still having people not actually applying legislation appropriately. But that gap is going to change. And I think with the younger generation demanding safer workplaces and learning and educating, I think that is going to take it to a whole new level. We're not going to have the tragedies that we had, like the West Ray mine incident or Hudson Bay mining and smelting blowing up, or continued falls from heights in construction. There's so many things that have changed in the last 20 years. And I think in the next 20, it's going to get better. I
Amazing.
hope. I
Thank you.
hope.
Now, what would you give for advice to people that are getting into this line of work? Let's say a 25, 26-year-old lady, man, whoever, who's going to start a career in safety.
Well, I can always tell when someone's new in safety because they have their little legislation binder and they've got it all color coded and tabbed. Put it away. The biggest thing that is important for you is to get to know your people. Go out in the field, talk, explain, build your stories. Stories are amazing. I get that feedback all the time from my young and new workers like, I didn't know that. I wish somebody would have told me that. Get to know your people, become part of their team, understand their job and understand your job. Don't pretend to know what their job is. Actually, find out what it is and understand how you can work as a team to make it better. So don't always pull out the regulations and quote regulations. That doesn't work. Nobody wants to be quoted a regulation. It's sort of like having the police stand there and go, "You sped at 100 kilometers an hour." I know I went through the red light. Okay, I got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that is not going to work. But saying, "Hey, if we did it this way, would that work?" and still meet our ability to perform the job safely and efficiently and not impact how you're doing it. And I think by having those conversations with your staff um, and really working together as a team, because without a team, you're not going to get to where you got to go.
Awesome. Thank you. That's great advice. I just want to make sure you're answering questions before I'm asking them. So I just want to make sure I'm getting everything answered for this prep. So you're a wonderful interview. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks,
And
Dan.
you've given me a success story already. Oh, okay. Here, what common misconceptions would you say that are out there about the role of safety in industry?
There are a few sometimes. I think the biggest misconception is it's safety's job. Whether you hear it from management or you hear it from workers, they think that the safety professional, it's their job to make it safe. No, it's our job to give you the tools and equipment and knowledge so that you can make the right decisions and choices. I don't think I'm a safety cop. I'm not going to go out there and say, hey, why are you not wearing a fall harness? You know that you're working at heights. And what did I teach you about working at heights? You need to assess the hazards, assess what the controls that you need to put in place. If you don't have all those controls in place, then you're putting yourself at risk. I'm not at risk. And that's what I say is I'm not the one performing the job. I'm the one guiding you to perform it safely and effectively so you can collect that paycheck. You can go skiing, you can go hang out with your kids, you can go on that vacation to Hong Kong, whatever your life desire is. My role is to facilitate and teach you to make the right decisions.
It's funny because in my other life, I'm a keynote speaker on safety, and so I'll go around and I'll talk to crews about, and really, it comes down to the message that leadership always wants is, and it doesn't matter if we're celebrating a milestone or if we're sometimes I'll be brought in to actually to lay a heavy message because a heavy message is needed because they're trending badly, right? And it's I mean
Yes.
I don't whip people, but I'll tell some stories, but it's always about accountability and it's about them owning safety and about taking care of each other and making sure everybody gets home safe, but that if we're working together, you got my back and I got your back, and that's how it works, and that means that you're taking care of my wife and kids, and
Well,
I'm
you
taking
can't
care of
win the
yours.
game if you don't play it right.
Exactly, exactly. So I
Y-
feel like I love what you said there. It really resonates with me. Thank you. Okay, so what three rules? So now, do you have kids?
Oh, I've got kids and grandkids, so yeah,
Okay, good.
rules.
Good, good. Yeah. So, what three rules would you like all of the people? And I love when people have grandkids. I haven't gotten any yet, but I've got five in my life, five kids in my life. Two to my new wife, and three are my biological kids. So we're hoping for grandkids sometime. Um, what three rules would you have the children of your life follow and like learn and know before they like so they actually internalize these rules? What would you have them know before they move out of the house?
Oh goodness, my kids they knew the rules long before. Anytime we did anything, it was like, you need to wear closed-toed shoes before you mow the lawn, right? No, you can't mow the lawn like that. You need this, you need that. I think the three rules is before you go out to look for your job, yes, you need a job. However, there's nothing stopping you from interviewing that prospective employee. There are resources out there, the top 10 questions you can ask an employer to understand what are they doing to protect you when you get there. That's number one.
Amazing.
Number one is always ask the questions. Never be afraid to ask questions and and protect yourself that way. I think the other one is don't be afraid to learn something new. Right? I remember when I had my first car and I wanted to learn how to change the oil because back in the day when I was in high school, girls went to cooking classes, guys went to shop. And the first time I went to shop, the teacher didn't want girls in his class. So I didn't learn how to change the oil. So I went out and bought those Haynes books, and I got all the things. And my dad kept saying, we'll do it later. We'll do it later. Well, I went out to my car. I didn't know all the things. I did not know that after driving to go get all the stuff, you got to let the car cool before you change the oil. And I went underneath and I got a face full, oil. I learned sometimes it's better to transfer the risk. So if you don't know how to do something, learn either how to do it properly or transfer your risk and get an expert to do it. That's rule number two.
I like it.
Rule number three is it's okay to say you messed up, right? It's okay to say that because I found when doing investigations, nobody wanted to say they forgot to tell someone to do something or they missed a step or they didn't properly do an assessment. It's okay to say, because in incident investigation, we're not trying to find blame. We're trying to find solutions. And if the solution is failure to provide proper direction, then that's critical. And I said that to many supervisors. I did an investigation where my file was this thick and theirs was one page. And I said, what's the difference between yours and mine? And they go, you had more time to investigate? I said, no, I went through all the steps necessary. And what did I find was a root cause? The supervisor failed to follow the directions and didn't give proper communication. Is that the supervisor's fault? No, go back one step. Who gave him the directions? Who gave the supervisor directions? Where in that process? So it's okay to say, I made a mistake because that mistake that you made could change the life for someone else.
That's awesome.
So,
I haven't, I hear a lot of rules, and that's one I don't get very often. I don't actually think it might be the first time I've heard it, and I'm a Christian man, and I just find that there's a lot of people in the world right now trying to scare everybody into never admitting their mistakes. And if
well,
you
if you don't admit
it's
them,
everything's on your permanent record, it's online or it's on here, it's on, and it's going to always stick
it's
with
going to
you.
be on permanent record what I just said.
But
So,
but I mean, here we are, and when you actually say, you know what, I messed up and I made a mistake, it's freedom. It's actually freedom because you don't have to. There's nothing else you have to. You just have to make sure you don't do it again. And if you just
well,
make sure you don't do it again, life's pretty good.
like they said, there is no accountability with no responsibility. and
Yeah.
vice versa. If you're not accountable for what you've done, how can you not accept responsibility? I can't walk away and say, I didn't do that. If I did something that caused something, then I'm responsible and accountable to step up to the plate.
Yeah.
And and I think that's the hardest thing is we've all been led to believe that CYA is important. Well, CYA, it doesn't really protect anybody. They
No, and
protect
it wrecks relationships. Like, if you think about it,
absolutely.
if that's what you do at work and that's what then you go home and you try that with your marriage, well, it ain't gonna work. You know? You
I
better be able
know.
to admit when you're wrong, because 'cause I've tried not admitting it, believe me. It doesn't
Yeah,
work,
yeah.
you know? That
No,
just
no, you need to be able to step up and say, "Yeah, I screwed up." And because of that, this happened. And recognizing that. And I think self-awareness is critical to being a good leader. If you're not self-aware of your own biases, your own beliefs, your own behaviors, you can't lead by example. And
exactly.
leading by example is, I know they call me, you know, mama, but they're my kids. Every single one of my employees are my kids, and I wouldn't tell them to do anything different that I would tell my children. Um, and I think that's why they like me, which is interesting because most people don't like safety professionals. I don't know why. It's not like we're mean. We're just
You know
trying to
what?
keep you safe.
I like you too, Teresa, and I really appreciate you coming on today.
Thanks.
You did it well. You made my job easy. I mean, you asked me, you answered the questions. I was going through the question. Well, we got that one, got that one, got that one. So it's not hard, because you know what you believe and you know what you stand for. And I'm really happy that you came on the show.
This has been so awesome, and I appreciate the opportunity because most people don't want to hear from us. They just know we're in the background, and putting us in the foreground and being able to share why we do what we do. It's time that people understand we're not there to harass them. We're there to lift them up and support them in their career and their goal and the rest of their life.
You know what? You're helping me break that old misunderstanding. So thank you. Great job today. We'll get this thing going, and I'll be in touch as soon as I can.
Sounds wonderful. Have
All
an
right.
amazing day.
You too. Take care. Have a great weekend.